G'day everyone and welcome back to this simple game maker tutorial. Last video I said we were going to look at creating the health bar and ammo counter. I think that's what it was, but if it wasn't, that's what we're going to do this video anyway. So let's have a look at what we are going to need. We're obviously going to need something to keep track of the player health, and we're also going to need something to keep track of how much ammo they have. So the best place to create that is in here with our variables. So I'm just going to actually make sure this says initialize variables, so that it says it over here instead of execute a piece of code. And I'm going to add these. Now it doesn't really matter what order you initialize variables in. These are what are called sequential instructions. It does this, then it does this, then it does this. It's important that it goes in the create event so that other objects afterwards know that this variable exists, but other than that, it doesn't matter what order we put these in. So I'm going to put in I probably should have had something else. Oh no, these are fine. I'm just going to call this ammo equals, and we'll start with 50. And we're going to also use player health. So I might actually change this to player ammo. Player health equals 100. 100 is pretty easy to work with, so we'll leave it at this. So player health equals 100. Now what we're going to do in here is we're going to add an event, and this is going to be a collision. We want to know what happens when we collide with the enemy tank. So in here we're going to write in that the health is going to decrease. So player health minus equals, and we'll just make it minus equals 10. And then we want to destroy the enemy tank. So we go with other instance destroy. Now, it's probably a good idea to put these code blocks around it, even though it will work without it. The way that if statements and things like that work is if there's only one of these kind of sequential instructions or expressions after it, it's okay to do it without code blocks. But for good practice and just so that you don't make small mistakes, probably best to put the code blocks around it anyway. So with the other object in this collision, then we're going to destroy it. So we're not going to destroy the tank, we're just going to destroy the other one over there. Okay, so now what should happen is the tanks should move towards it, and when they hit our player, what will happen is that they will get destroyed. Okay, so they get destroyed. It's not very spectacular at the moment. Okay, so we can add in a few more things here. We can add in a draw at other.x, other.y, and make a red explosion, etc. Below objects is fine. And I'll just duplicate that a few times. Change it to a small one with orange. And change it to smoke. Medium's fine. Black smoke. Okay. So now it should it's creating it at my location for some reason. Let's have a look here. Object tank. That seems to not work. So what we might do with those is I might select all three. I could select more than one by clicking shift and cut those. And over on the enemy tank, we're going to add in an event, which is a destroy event. So this event's going to occur when the tank is destroyed. I'm going to paste those things in there, and we'll get rid of other from all of these. So we'll just go at the tanks X and Y. And that will make it so that when the tank destroys, it has those little effects that appear. Let's hope that works. Yeah, so that's better. All right, so now we need to get something to actually show that our health is going down. Now we could just display a number on the screen, but sometimes it's a bit more fun to create a controller for this. So I'm going to do this in here. I'm going to create what's called a draw event, draw GUI, sorry. And I'm just going to make sure that when this event is in here, that my tank still draws. Okay, that's good, it does. If you use the draw event, just the draw here, then your tank won't actually draw on the screen. You have to manually draw it on. Draw GUI is a different type of function that's in GameMaker Studio. And GameMaker Studio is free, by the way. If you're still using old versions of GameMaker, upgrade to GameMaker Studio. The light version will let you do pretty much anything. There's not really any, except for use the yo-yo compiler. I'm pretty sure that's probably the one major limitation, but it's not a big deal. If you're working at high school, it's not going to limit you in any way. So what we're doing here, draw GUI, it's going to draw an overlay on our screen. And what we want to do is draw a little health bar in the top right corner. So what we've got here, if we think of this as our screen, we need to consider the coordinates. So the top left corner, and this is not like maths where, you know, the bottom left corner of your grid or the intersection, the origin would be down here, and then you'd have negatives going that way and negatives going down. In GameMaker, and pretty much all programming languages that use a graphical user interface, the top left corner is the origin. And so as we go along the x-axis, and you should be familiar with coordinates and know that that first there, the 0, is the x-axis. As we go along, that 0 is going to increase until it gets all the way up to the room width, whatever the room width is. In this case, for my room, the default is 1024. So when we're all the way up here, it's 1024, 0 in this top right corner. As we go down on the y-axis, if we go down here, well, the y value is going to get bigger until it gets all the way down to 768. Now we can actually go beyond that. We can set things at different positions that are outside the room, but for the GUI that's not very useful because we won't see them. And then in this bottom right corner, as we go across and down or on a diagonal, those coordinates are going to increase until we get to the room width and the room height. Now in GameMaker, room underscore width, room underscore height are actual keywords that we can use to refer to this here. So we could do a few different things, like we could say, okay, we want this in our top right corner, and we could have a guess and say, okay, the room width is 1024, maybe 800 pixels across is probably about here, and we could draw a health bar in there. The problem with that is if we decide to play this on a device that has a varying screen width, and maybe the game room changes to 1280 by 1024 or 1280 by 768 for widescreen, what's going to happen is this box might end up looking like it's here rather than all the way over there. So what we can do is we can use this derived value room width and say we want it to be maybe 200 pixels from the right hand side of the room. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to draw a square from the right hand side of the room that is the size of our health bar. So in here, draw GUI, we're going to go to a code block. There is actually a draw rectangle button, which I might use this time here. Okay, this one here is horizontal gradient. And it's quite useful for health bars because it will change as it goes down. So I'm going to select green as the top one. And the X1, Y1. That's the top left corner of the rectangle. So that's going to be, the X is going to be room width minus, and I'll make it 200. Then the Y value, this is not going to change. This is always going to be the same distance from the top of the room, and we're going to make it 25. Okay, so if we think of this here, it's going to be here, and then that's going to be 25 pixels from there to there. Now, for the bottom right corner, I have to use this value and add some numbers to it along the X. Now, I actually want to add the player health, and I'm going to add the player health. So it's going to be 100 wide is going to be the maximum. And then for the Y, so it actually shows up, I'm going to make it 35. So that's going to make it 10 pixels high. So the Y is going to be 35. That's going to make my health bar 10 pixels high. This one is going to be room width minus 200. So that's where it starts. And I'm going to add my player underscore health to this. I might actually multiply this. Player underscore health times 1.5. That's going to make it just a little bit larger so that at the most there's going to be 50 pixels from the side of that screen. And we've got those two colors. So if I hit play now, hopefully it still draws the tank. If not, it's very easy to. In that top right corner, I've got that health bar. And you see as I get hit, that health bar is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's kind of silly how this bit down here, it draws the gradient but doesn't really kind of cut it off, so it doesn't get more red, it just gets smaller, but that'll be fine for now. So we've got a health bar working. Last thing we want to do in the step event is we're going to add another bit of code, and this is an if statement. So what we need to do here, we'll do the ammo in the next video, what we need to do here is check what happens, or check to see if the player's health ever drops below 0. And so to do that, it's if, okay, if something happens. And then we have our brackets inside these parentheses, and these are curved brackets, not curly brackets, not square brackets. They all have different purposes in programming. They're not interchangeable. If the condition that is met in here is true, it's going to do the stuff in these code blocks here. So if the stuff in here is true, it's going to do the stuff in the code block. So what we need to do in here is write what's called an expression. An expression is a statement that can either be only true or false. So in this case, player health is less than or equal to 0. So what we're doing here is we're checking this statement. Is this statement true? And if it is, we're going to do some code in here. If it's not, well, it skips this code and does whatever's below. And we're not going to put anything below, so it just won't do anything for now. So if the player health is less than 0, we're going to, for now, restart the game. And that's not an actual code, so let's see, game restart. That looks like it is. So if the player health ever gets below 0, we're going to restart the game. Now, if we were to continue with this, we might do room go to and go to a game over room, and give the player some options to restart, etc. Okay, so I'm not actually going to be able to do this, so what I might do is just change collision with enemy tank, and we'll make it 50. I'll make it 49. So I should be able to take one hit, half my health bar's gone. I take the next one, and I've only got one little bit left, and then the game restarts. So that part's working. One thing to be aware of with Draw GUI is it's a bit misleading. It allows you to draw a HUD, not an actual user interface. Okay, anything you draw on here can't be interacted with. If you draw buttons on here, you can't click on them. It's really should be called Draw HUD, and allows you to draw like overlays of different things. So you can draw a whole HUD on there and update it, but you can't draw buttons and things that you can click on. Okay, so we've done our player health. That's working, and hopefully you understand how this here can only be true or false. Okay, if health is at 50, this statement is false. Okay, because player health is not less than or equal to 0. If health is at 0, this statement is true because health is equal to 0. If it's at -1 or -48, like it would have been when I did my test there, player health is less than 0. And so that is true, and we restart the game.